This is Paul Storty. I'm interviewing Mr. and Mrs. Joe Kelly at Kelly's Cross Senior Citizens Home, Kelly's Cross, PEI. The date is Friday, May 21st, 1982. Joe Kelly is 94 years old, and his wife, Loretta, is 88 years old. They both have valuable information on their ancestors and other early settlers in the Kelly's Cross area. Joe still plays the fiddle and has done so for 83 years. Both Joe and Loretta take a great interest in their past.
The real thing.
The real thing.
I didn't realize it at the time.
Where?
It was built. It was made in 1734 or some way back in them years anyway. Stradivarius, it was printed on the inside of it. But I don't know whether it was real Stradivarius or not. That was a very important fiddle.
Yeah.
Worth thousands of dollars, some of them fiddles were.
And they bought it for $5?
I got it for $5 a case.
The stamp was on it, that's all you know about it.
I don't know, it was a really good fiddle, I didn't realize, but I never liked it myself, it was awful loud. But I played for years and years with that fiddle.
Where did you first learn to play it?
I learned at home, our own home. I had a brother, my brother John, and I had two of us, he was older than I. And he started playing. He was only rasping out, you know, his feet would get his feet going all the time. It could have heck of a noise.
Yeah.
My mother used to chase him out of the house and making too much noise. He'd go over to the granary and get into the granary and play there and tear away out. So then I took a notion, tried to learn. Dang it, I picked it. I got to learn the tune.
What was the name of it? Can you remember?
Well, I don't know what the name of it was, but I knew the tune. It was an old timer. It wasn't too hard to play. I learned it anyway. So from that I kept on playing and learned other tunes along with that. The first dance I played for, my feet wouldn't reach from the chair down to the floor.
You're kidding.
True as I'm telling you.
Oh.
It was up here at Peter McQuaid's where Stephen Smith lives there now. It seems they had a dance up there, and my brothers and sisters, they were going to this dance, you know. And whoever their fiddler was, I don't know who they intended to play, but anyway, he didn't show up. So my oldest brother, Frank, he was there and he said, I'll go home and get Joe. That was me, you know. I'll go home and get Joe to play. So up I went. And I don't remember playing for them, but I played. He said it was had a great night's fun. So that was that. That was my first, I remember that time.
Then after that, you just kept playing at dances?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I played for lots of dances through the country.
Did you ever get paid? You never?
Well, they'd collect, you know, around with a hat among the crowd. They might get 10 cents, or probably $1, $2. I got, but one night I got $9 playing at a dance in Charlie Palmer's with Victoria there. And there was a desperate crowd there that night. So I went around with this hat and I gathered $9. And there was a Georgie village that used to live down the middle of the road there. He could play the fiddle a little too. And he played for a couple of dances, helped me out, you know. So I gave him $2 or $3 this night, got the rest. So.
When did you get your next fiddle? After?
Oh, well, I had that fiddle for years and years, that first one I got. And I gave it to my brother, or my son. And where did I get the other fiddle? Father
Johnny Campbell
Father Johnny Campbell
sent it home from
Boston.
He came to our place and he wanted Joe to play, and Joe said there's no strings in his fiddle.
I know it fiddle was
Next
cracked
time I
down.
come down to the island, he said, I'll make sure you'll have a fiddle. So he sent it home with someone.
Sent it home with Rose Campbell.
Aunt Rebecca used to stay with her.
And then that's the same fiddle you have now?
No, it's a new fiddle. This woman bought me a fiddle here, but many years ago was that? 7 or 8 years ago.
That was longer than
What?
It's longer than that.
We're in here now at the time.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the one I got now.
Hmm. Can you remember some names of the early tunes you used to play?
Oh, yeah. Lord MacDonald's Reel, Fisher's Hornpipe, Irish Washerwoman, and what the heck's the name of that tune? Oh, I forget now. That's by them anyway.
Irish eyes are smiling.
Yeah, there was all these lots of dancing tunes, you know, for people to dance.
Oh, yeah.
He could play any tune that you mentioned from over the years.
That is one thing, I could learn a tune awful quick.
You
I heard
just
two or
picked it
three.
up by
Yeah,
ear?
just pick it up by ear.
Oh.
Then I made a couple of tunes here this winter.
Of
Made
your own?
my own music.
You should get the
Oh,
fiddle and play
right.
that for him now one
Thank
day.
God I will.
That'd be great.
Yeah, okay.
That's-
Very good now.
What's the name of this? Is this the one you made up?
Yeah, I can't think of it now. What the heck, where did it go? What a funny thing.
You're not going to get advertised in your turn. He's
Well,
getting now he
I
forgets.
made more than one of this one. I kind of.
Could you play one of your
Play
older
that.
ones? that
He
Yeah.
plays one that I always ask him to play.
What, by Wallace?
Yeah,
Oh,
play that.
that's an old hard time.
Oh, that's a good tune.
Can you Wallace? Get her up on
Not
this
very
Wallace.
well.
You play the tune.
What way does that go then?
You pretty?
Now,
That was good.
you think you'll be able to play when you're that good when you're 93?
I don't think so. What was the name of that?
Oh, it's a great big long name, I can't think of it now. That there Indian over Nova Scotia.
Primo. Is it?
Primo. Nova
Plays it.
Scotian. Cape Breton.
Oh.
He learned it off,
I learned it off.
of his
of a record.
tape. Or
Oh.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
one of his.
Oh, this damn chair. I can't play on that.
Oh, okay.
Sit here.
Hmm?
And I just sit there.
Yeah. Big Frank Munn, where your Phyllis lives.
Mm-hmm.
There, you never heard him play it. He put one foot away back like that.
Mm-hmm.
Play for yourself, never mind someone else.
Oh, what the heck.
Give him the name of the town, you know.
Yeah, what's the name?
No, I have no name. I didn't christen it yet.
Joe Kelly
that's
song.
your own.
No, can't think of it now. I'll play another waltz.
Okay. What was the name of that one?
Oh, that's a waltz. I forget what to call them. I forget all the names of them tunes.
Perhaps you've enough to, did you want any more on your tape?
Well, yeah, any.
Three Mary's, is that
What?
one?
No, I can't. I don't know it well now. There's only certain times, you know, when Humor
Just-
playing, I'm just sort of
Oh,
away.
you're just forgetting today. Wearing a green or something simple.
They Speed the Plow is the first
Okay.
one.
Good.
I can't. My arms. I don't know.
Well, that'll be enough.
Yeah, that'll be.
I'm
You get up there.
telling you about them growing flax.
Mm-hmm.
So they, I can remember that myself, where they grow the flax and then they thrash the flax by hand with a flail.
Mm-hmm.
They would beat it and take the seed off, and then they would, it would have to be dried before well, what would you call it? They made a frame, and this flax all on the top of this, and put a fire underneath, and they kept turning the flax up over the top of it till it all dry good. Keep it that, everybody, one or two would tend to that work, and there'd be another one had the stand with the beating this,
Scotch.
scotching the flax.
Yeah.
That's the way they did it. They had the stand was like a board, and then there was a board up straight, and they laid across this, and they did it with the thing they used for scotching the flax was, it was wood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it was as,
Sharp.
yeah, made as thin, you know.
To a sharp point.
And they would come like this, like down over they'd lay the flax over the back of the board, keep it like this till they take all the hull off the stalk, just like a straw stalk, you know. And that the outside hull came off, and the inside was just like silk thread, you know, just full flax thread. And they had that like in, well, bundles of, I don't know what to call them, just like the wool from the sheep, you know, when you get it carded.
Yeah.
And then that was taken inside, and it was spun on the wheel into a thread, and it was won onto spools, and that was got ready for weaving. Then the web was would have to be put into a loom. They well, sometimes they used the flax thread for like the warp part. They had so much on a roll that went in through heddles.
Mm-hmm.
And then the one that was weaving, they had all that on spools and had a shuttle that shoot it back and forth, and they moved these paddles on the bottom that made the heddles go up and down and over the.
Another thing that pushed
Yeah,
back and forth.
what did they call
Tight.
that? To make it tight, you know.
Yeah.
When they
Pressed
put a
together.
thread through like this, they saw the thing come in, give it a bang, put another thread through this, give it another crack. Oh, it was really amusing.
Must have been a big operation.
Oh,
Yeah,
it was
the loom was as wide as that there thing.
To build a
Oh, you had lumber. That was down there.
Oh, made
It's
of
only
wood.
not very long ago since Armbers throwed that out of that and made it. Since they went to Trees and Ronnie went there, they used that upstairs for playroom for the kids.
Oh, it was right in the house upstairs?
Yeah, it was the upstairs over the kitchen.
Oh.
They had the room. And all that was and all the rigs they had for winding the quills, you know, to use. The one, see, the thread had to be won onto little spools. They were made out of, they were just little things about this length made out of pasteboard. And you put that on, and you won them are filled up, and they would go into a shuttle. These little spools you put into a shuttle that went through they have fit in this thing, see.
And then after that, when it was on the machine, that's when they made the patterns in that?
Well, it was. Well, see, when it had there had to be the warp put in first to get it ready to weave, and when you had it all ready to weave, then the woman sat on, and she had the thread in these little shuttles, and she kept going back and forth, and till it had filled and get a yard done, it was rolled on this big thing behind, won it up, and oh well, you'd have to near see it. I seen an old one in at the exhibition one time some years ago, not that long ago. An old.
And you can make all your clothes with?
Well, see, they did out of that linen. See, they made the tablecloths and they made the towels, and even the olden times they used to make, instead for mattresses, they used ticks. They made these big ticks like a mattress, and they filled them with chaff from the, you know, when you thrash, save the chaff from the thrashing behind them. You would never seen them thrashing, I guess, in your day. Well, that used to be the way for the oats these later years. In the early years, they didn't have that, but then they got the machine for thrashing, and they saved all the good chaff that would come out, and that was put away careful for filling the ticks for the beds. That's what you lay on.
Everything was used?
Yeah, everything was used. That was your bed, and you made, and the mattresses was made just, well, as big as a bed, you know, wide as that, and fill that up nice and full of chaff and sew it up and take it in, that was your bed. Every fellow knew, but that was a big job. Every year you'd throw out the old chaff and you'd have the new chaff to go in for a fresh bed for the winter.
Oh, yeah. So, did you guys sell? Did you make ever make them to sell to people?
Oh no, everybody made their own, and I never seen anyone making them to sell.
No.
They were only made your own, you know.
So there'd be a lot of them around.
Yeah, every fella did. Everybody had to make his own, get by on it. I don't know what the other fella did, but I know that was the way they lived. And then they grew everything practically they eat. The buckwheat, they sowed buckwheat, and we saved got it ground, made the buckwheat for making pancakes, and what else did we grow? Potatoes and turnips, all just like now. But in them times, there's no such a thing as these big machines. You had at the first going off, when they cleared the land, you didn't even have a plough, perhaps, for to plough it in. They'd have forks and shovels, and they'd just dig up the ground. And I remember my mother going out around a place where it was, the trees were cut down, but the stumps were there. And there'd be awful good clay, out around. And they'd pile up clay and put a few sets of potato seeds into each little pile. I remember her doing that even back when John Philip lived in Maplewood there. And in a place where there was dandy ground. And the potatoes that grew in there, just in hills. They called them hills. Sometimes now they call like when people plant cucumbers. They plant them in hills. They grow better than pile the clay up around. Put 6 or 7 sets in a kind of a hill, and you put the clay up around it and then grow. And go to another spot where there's good clay and make another pile. And there, the early days, that's the way we did.
You didn't use any fertilizer, or?
Oh, that clay'd grow anything. There's no such a thing as fertilizer then. Yeah.
So those were all the crops that you grew?
Pardon?
Those were the crops that
Yes,
you grew?
yeah.
And then that'd have to do use all winter?
Oh, yeah.
So.
You'd grow your own wheat too.
Yeah, the wheat and the bran from the wheat, you save everything was saved and used. The flour, you used the flour to make bread, and the bran to, make porridge. Yeah. Heaven said of the buckwheat flour, they made buckwheat pie. I remember having seen buckwheat porridge made out of the buckwheat flour. So there was nothing bought that, you couldn't get them, there was no money to buy things.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's no ready cash, but you've always had...
Yeah, and when they go out to the field to work, if they were digging potatoes, said, perhaps I remember them having a great laugh about, they make a little fire and they dig up the potatoes and wash them off of those of spring around, and put the potatoes on the coals and cook the potatoes, and they'd have perhaps a bit of butter with them. And I remember them laughing at home with saying, "You dip in the hole with Rose." My grandmother's name was Rose, and when they'd take the potatoes, they'd have the butter in something that was a little tin or something that was melted, and they take the potato and dip it into the butter or whatever they call it, and every fella had something to dip in, and they said, "Dip in the hole with Rose."
So everybody around here were farmers?
Well, that's what they started, yeah.
Were there any blacksmiths, or?
Oh, yeah, there was 4 or 5 blacksmiths up here at Kelly's Cross.
Well, everyone had to learn their own trade, I guess they had to.
Charlie McKenna and Paddy Trainer, and old Jim McDonald. There were 3 blacksmith shops
Right
Kelly's
around the
Cross.
corner. And there was, right at the corner, there was a tailor shop.
Yeah.
This was a common town here that had kept it up.
Yeah, there's suit clothes made there. You just take your measure and pick out your piece of cloth.
Them were
Old Jimmy Callahan.
people that were cousins of mine. Yeah. Well, that's over 100 years ago, since they had that tailor shop up there at the corner. I remember the building, but I never remember them tailoring in it or working there.
I remember them.
Well, you were a little older than me.
Well, when you guys did go to the store, would you just say, "I'll give you a dozen eggs for something that you you didn't have"? Is that how you?
Well, they give us, when it got a little, well, in my time, of course, they were buying stuff. There was boats coming into Victoria there,
Oh, yeah.
and they bought potatoes, so they buy turnips, and they buy the oats, if you had oats,
Oh, yeah.
a crop of
Oh,
oats.
yeah.
But so, what I was telling you about that weaving, that was even, you know, my mother's people that did that. I was only small, that's what I remember in that. I never wove myself,
Yeah.
because I couldn't. And I'm wearing up to the hundreds mark. Oh dear, not quite that old, but
No.
crawling up.
Could you tell me some information about Father Duffy?
Well, is the book there?
Yeah, but
You don't want that? What's
I want it sort of from by mouth. Like,
you know, well, I could get some items I forget about somewhat there.
no, well, just he was from Ireland.
Yeah, he comes from Ireland.
And he was in Newfoundland for a time as a priest there, and they had it pretty rough there. This lady that was here to interview you, she had a lot of knowledge about. She said where they were wanting to build a church there in Newfoundland, and I guess they were just like our old times. There was no money, no nothing, and they'd have to walk for ages, and seems they had to go, well, some of the parishioners went with them. I don't know what they were going for anyway, but they were so dry and they couldn't, they were just parched for a drink. And he got down and he just scraped a little hole in the water, sprung up. That's what she told us. And that is there yet, and they call it Father Duffy's Well. The spring, this water came out of from us. Well, I guess those must have been Sino waters, but that well is there yet, and the people go in Newfoundland to that well, and they call it Father Duffy's Well. I had a sup of water in the bottle. I think there's somebody in there yet that was brought to me last year from Newfoundland, from that well. And they think there's cures.
From there.
Yeah, and this lady that was here was that time, she said, I'm not a Catholic, she said, but I have drank the water from that well, and she said, you surely feel better after you drink it.
Oh, so why did Father Duffy come to the island if he wasn't?
Well, in them times there wasn't that many priests, and he came first to Nova Scotia first. He came from Nova Scotia, then here to Prince Edward Island, and see, there wasn't many priests. When he was here as a priest, he had Kincora Parish, Kelly's Cross, and at 65, he'd have to go to 3 places like in one. He wouldn't go one day. Could he make that?
Yeah, he must have.
I mean, he'd have Mass in Kincora, and then he'd come through to here, Kelly's Cross. It wasn't this church. It was the old church was down in the old graveyard. That's where the old church was at that time.
Well, where did he live? Did he just live in parishioners?
Well, he must have lived in Kincora. I don't know where he stayed.
Never know where he stayed. But anyway, he wouldn't have a house. It wouldn't be no parish house at that time.
No.
It's just for stay at a house and be passing through, I guess. But then he took sick. And when he was sick, he took pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was dying, he asked to be buried in Kelly's Cross. Said he liked the people of Kelly's Cross, and he wanted to be buried in front of the church, so that when people would be passing by, going into the church, they'd offer up a prayer for his soul. So then that old church, that was the old hall that was over here.
Mm.
They built the new church, not the way this one's built, it was set the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And when they built the church, there was a wooden church before the brick one. That's the old wooden church they built there. I remember it. So that when it was built, they wanted to fulfill Father Duffy's wishes, so they decided to have his remains raised.
Around what year was this?
That'd be in 1900.
When did he die? When did Father Duffy?
Oh, he died in 1860.
That book was
From the
long.
stone down.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think it's in 1860.
He was dead 40 years.
He's dead for
Buried 40 years in the other cemetery when he was raised from the dead and buried here in front of this church.
Well, did the whole parish come to? What did they just dug with shovels and they?
Oh, yeah.
They raised him up with the shovels and...
Your father and my
yeah.
older brother.
Yeah, my father. I remember my
The
father
two of them
done
in
all
the
that. He was one of the pallbearers when he was reburied.
Oh.
Yeah, and they got a new casket. They took the raised up what was there. Well, I don't know whether the casket was intact or not, but the body was. Those board must have come up to, they lifted him out of the grave. And his body was the same as when he was buried. And they put new vestments on him, and they laid him out in the new casket. And they had his remains taken into the church and placed in the front of the altar, and waked overnight, and the funeral, burial, mass, high mass, the bishop out from Charlottetown and all the priests. Oh, it was like a tea party that came. It was that came from. But no cars at that time, but wagons, and that's how you get there. They were here. And there was confirmation that same day, I think they said. Joe was about 10.
I was confirmed.
You were confirmed, I did.
Oh. And you saw Father Duffy, did you?
I saw his remains.
What did he look like?
Well, that's hard to explain. The frame of the human body was there just the same as it went down the grave.
It said it just looked like wax.
Yeah, his face was, the whole frame of the face was there, and there was a skin of some description. It wouldn't be skin, I don't know what it
It was just like wax. That we all heard them
Yeah.
saying. It was just like a wax doll.
All the features there, eyes, ears, everything.
Well,
It must have been good when you could leave it open, casket open, and open to the public.
yeah.
And left in the church overnight, people said, and waked like a wake.
Well, when he died at first, was he considered to be an exceptional priest? Like, did he have?
No, just like everybody else, just a rough priest that he'd.
Never thought much of when he died, I guess.
Well, I mean, he was a good man. But
He was a very religious man.
But they claimed that now they're digging into it more in Newfoundland, and they're finding all how he was determined to get things done, get it no matter. It seems there's opposition or something in some other nationality or church.
The landlord there.
Yeah, it was the landlord. I think.
Yeah.
Didn't
He
want
didn't-
them to build a church in this place where he wanted it.
He was something like a communist. He
But-
didn't believe in religion at all.
And
owned all.
this is how they went at night, and they got done a lot of they got the lumber out and got the frame up when there weren't no one around. See, he was that determined. And they all worked with him, see. And they got their church up in spite of the landlord. So he was that kind of a man, that he was determined to get his church.
And then after, when he was raised up again, then people knew he was.
Well, I thought he
there
was a real
something
saint.
exceptional.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Knew he must have been a saint, really. He would have been.
And now you see that with where his remains is there, it's too near the road. Say the old road is just like a plain road,
That
and
time
now
was
see
only
they're
widened
widening the
out the
road out, and they're getting nearer they were right up to the bottom of his grave. See, and here what priest was here when Father Robin was it?
Father
That
Robin.
they talked of thinking that we'll have to raise him again, moving back further. So see, it's falling down. So you notice where it is. The foot of the grave is just about ready to be on the roadside.
Mm-hmm.
So they had the bishop out here to,
Bishop's fence was it?
yeah,
They
to
looked
look
over
over.
and he thought,
And he advised, he said he thought it would be better to put a cement around the bottom to keep the clay from falling in. It's rather than have it raised again. And I didn't do that yet, but whether it will or not. But if it still falls in, it'll hardly come back any further there anyway, if the road.
That's true.
The pavement's in now, so.
So on the stone it has where he was born and
Oh, yeah.
other information.
Oh,
You should have that in your report copy. Yeah, if you had a picture, take a picture where that would show the writing and have it on your report, or even write it down.
It's clear, is it?
Oh, yeah. It's all there.
That's the same stone that was put there.
Well, that's a new one that was got after the other one was left lying on the old, where he was raised from, say, in the other grave, where that stone went. They're doing the graveyard. That was there in my younger days.
Even after his body was in the
Oh, yes. So we were only these later years that when they were doing over the other graveyards, see, that was all
well, you see Father Smith.
Yeah,
And
and all the stones were,
covered like with clay.
yeah, well, yeah. Any stones that wasn't any good, see, they were just bulldozed over, see.
Oh.
See, they fixed that graveyard down there, and terraced it. See, it was a rough place, and the clay was bulldozed from up here down into the other cemetery to make it, to terrace it. See, there's one top part of straight, and then there's a kind of a terrace down, and then there's another piece, and then another, like 3 steps come up in that other graveyard. That's the way it's done. And then the stones are put in rows. They're not really where the graves were.
That's,
Yeah, see,
because
they're just
relatives of mine,
It's
they're not where their
yeah.
tombstones.
See, there's near as can be, but they're not exact.
Well, what was it like before they did? Was it just a hill shaped like that? Or?
Well, let's see, the ground was rough, and there's trees
all
growing
just the
here
one.
and there, you know.
Slope. Now it's built up.
Yeah. It was just like a hill, just to come down the hill straight. But see, then they wanted to get it, like, make it look, you've seen them doing yards, you know, making it like a terrace. So that's how it. So I never don't know about the stones, see whatever happened to it. There was a lot of old stones, people hauled them away for making doorsteps. Weren't put up at all. If they were broke, see, they weren't
There
used.
used to be little fences.
Unless to the older people, there was no one there to take care of them. Anyone that had someone buried there was living when they were fixing the graveyard, well, they were there to see their stone was up, and they put up the good stones, but if it was old ones broken, you couldn't do much about them.
Wouldn't they just repair them? Or?
Yeah, but who would you get to do them in them days and money to do it with? I know there was a stone now that rose that I'm telling you by my grandmother and grandfather. When we were going to school, I remember where their stone was back. It was on the top row. And there's not a sign. That stone was thrown out, I guess. Well, that's a way back. When the people came here first, or the island settled here.
There's one more question I was going to ask you. Can you remember about the corner down there? Why it was named Kelly's Cross? Like,
yeah, well, the reason of that was a Kelly on each road. That's why they called it Kelly's Cross.
What? Do you remember their names?
Yeah. I remember the names. I don't know what. Maplewood was Tommy Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
There was Edward Kelly. And there was Jim Kelly. There was 3 on that road there. Up our road, my father. And his
Patrick
father.
Kelly was his father.
On the lower road was Edward Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
He was my uncle.
So they weren't.
And Johnny Kelly kept the
Johnny
post
Kelly,
office
yeah,
down
Johnny's
here, where
Cross,
Joe Mattis's
Or
place.
Joe Matheson was down
And
there.
Johnny
That's where
Kelly,
he
they
was.
were the.
He was a post, he kept the post office down there. And he was a millwright, or he was a carpenter.
So it wasn't right on the corner. There wasn't.
Yeah. No one right, no Kelly
no,
right on the
no.
corner.
No.
And then, well, when did it get the name Kelly's Cross? Was it just to start it being called that? And
Well, it must have been started before my time, it was there when that's what they called it when I first remember.
Now all the lower road, like South Melville, I've heard even in my younger days, the Kincora, Uncle Amber's or anyone that came down from Kincora, they called us disablers.
Yeah.
We were, that South Melville Road was disabled. That was all disabled down
That's
there.
where they landed first,
Yeah.
Sauble, they called it.
Sauble, that's what
isn't that French?
yeah, well,
Yeah.
see, that was the early...
Sounds French.
The early name for South Melville was DeSable or Disable or whatever. Disable, I guess.
You don't know why it was called that?
Well, put that on the common, that's on. I don't know any more than that. Why it was.
Okay.